Kitty ho, chickadees. How about that? Like a real live YouTube intro. Huh? Who knew Misdemeanor had it in her, huh? So tonight, I'm excited for us to get started. Before we get started, though, I absolutely, positively have to talk about the crap sandwich that I feel I'm living in. First off, Courtney Clenny is not going to start trial in December. I'm a little salty about that. You may have picked up on that. And of course, Mark Sanchez is going to be going right straight to trial, is what my understanding is, on December 11th. And Raul Valley was in the courtroom today and was seen in front of the judge. They decided to give him until November 17th to find an attorney. And Raul needs a good attorney. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed they can come up with something. I believe it's probably a financial issue since he made reference to that in the hearing today. I do have a short snippet. I probably will not, we will not have time to do it today, but we can do it in one of the update live streams that we do next week. I am still following and checking on all of the other cases we've talked about. I'm still checking on Mickey Steins and Zachary Adams. That's the Holly Bobo case out of Tennessee. Lakin Snelling, I'm still checking on. Barry Morphew. Trust me, I'm keeping my eyes open and my feelers out for all of those cases. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We have a special guest. Before we get too far into this, please make sure that you like and subscribe and do all the fun YouTube things that you're supposed to do on here. And I am excited to have Miss Catherine with us. I have to sincerely apologize to her when I get her from backstage because I had her name wrong on my Twix. I messed it up. Don't want to mess up somebody's name, for heaven's sake. We are going to, Coffee Nut, you're asking, am I going to do the Walsh case? Yes. And that will be later this month that we find out what happens after his evaluation in the hospital. So yes. And so we have Ms. Paige with us. She is a former law enforcement officer. She has been an investigative journalist. She is an advocate and a social worker for domestic violence victims. She's just got a really cool background. And so she's going to join us tonight because she has done a tremendous amount of research in the Ellen Greenberg case and also has communicated with Dr. and Mrs. Greenberg in the past and as recently as this week. So we are going to go over the entire Emmy report. It is 32 pages long, but I promise we'll do it quickly. And I haven't read any of it. So I'm doing it cold. And at this time, I'm going to have Miss Catherine join us. There she is. Hello.
Hello, Misdemeanor. Hello, chickadees. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored.
We are happy to have you at my house. Yes. Should you stop eating, Kelly? I don't know. Should you stop eating? I mean, not forever. That would be very bad.
That would be very bad. But I would stop eating for this case. Yes, I would. This is tough. This is very tough. Just despicable what happened to dear, wonderful Ellen.
Yes, and that's part of the crap sandwich that I'm in today because of this horrible report that came out. And yes, Kelly, because of the report, I mean, I'm sure it's going to have some oogie stuff in it. I'm just going to be honest. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it so that we can get talking and find out what we've got here.
Sounds great.
I'm going to see if I can. There we go. All righty, everybody. You know, it's Wine and Crime Wednesday. Hydrate yourselves. Although today it's less about the alcohol wine, and I feel like I need to wine today. Definitely. Alrighty, so let's get into it. Review. This is Lindsay Simon. She is the chief medical examiner in Philadelphia. Her review, the medical examiner's office was asked to conduct an independent and unbiased review of all available materials relating to the death of Ellen Greenberg, be conducted by the undersigned. The ultimate question to be answered by this review was whether the manner of death should be changed from the current ruling of suicide to could not be determined or homicide. This review was conducted independently by the undersigned, with all opinions being those of the undersigned, without influence by any of the involved parties. Really? Really? Do we believe that? We'll see. Materials reviewed, electronic and paper records retained in the ME's case file, photographs retained in the ME's case file, electronic and paper records generated by the Philadelphia Police Department, transcripts for the depositions of Doctors Lindsay Emery, Sam Galino, and Marlon Osborne, consultative reports from Dr. Wayne Ross, Dr. Jonathan Arden, Dr. Cyril Wecht, that's a familiar name, Detective Scott Eelman, Henry Lee, PhD, yet another familiar name, Thomas Brennan, Michael Woodhouse, PhD, investigative materials provided by Dr. Wayne Ross, and death in apartment 603, What Happened to Ellen Greenberg documentary. I'm shocked. Oh, miniseries on Hulu streaming service. I'm shocked that was even considered. Initial report of death. On Wednesday, 1/26/11, at approximately 7:30 p.m., the death of Ellen Greenberg was reported to the Philadelphia ME's office. The initially reported circumstances were that the decedent's fiancé forced entry into their shared apartment, to find Ellen with a knife in her chest. She was pronounced dead at the scene by medics at 6:40 p.m. on 1/26/11. In initial investigation of the death, medical examiner's office scene investigation, an investigator from the MEO responded to the scene at 8:27 p.m. on 1/26/11. At the scene, the investigator spoke to the decedent's fiancé and police. At this time, the fiancé reported that he had left the apartment around 4:45 to use the apartment building's gym. When he returned to the apartment at approximately 5:15 to 5:30, the fiancé found the apartment door secured from the inside. He attempted to reach Ellen via texts, phone calls, and knocking on the door for approximately 1 hour before he forced entry into the apartment. I'm going to take a little pause there, because I can tell you, if I couldn't get to a loved one it wouldn't take me an hour. I would be trying other avenues way faster than an hour.
I was reading your mind, Misdemeanor. I typed in your chat 1 hour with 2 exclamation marks. That made zero sense to me when I first listened to the 911. Misdemeanor, have you heard the 911 call?
I think I did literally years ago. It's been quite a long time since I've listened to it. I've heard bits and pieces of it. It doesn't sound convincing to me.
No, I've played it on my live stream as well, and it's in my library. If anyone's interested in hearing it, just go look for any of my lives on Ellen Greenberg, Social Change Warriors. I think it would behoove all of you to listen to it, because it's to me, it's quite shocking. And I actually had one of my dispatchers come on with me, Misdemeanor, a few weeks ago, and
I saw that.
Yes, he listened to it, and he was very concerned. I think he's going to join us tonight in the chat at some point.
Oh, excellent.
Dispatcher for many, many years, and he was very concerned by what really sounded like a complete, like you were telling me that your background is in theater. So when you take a re-listen, I think you're going to hear a really good acting job, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was, everything about it raised red flags for me. So yes. We'll continue on.
Thank you.
There is conflicting information in the MEO records as to whether the fiancé was accompanied by staff from the apartment complex when he forced entry into the apartment. In the report of death investigation written by the responding MEO investigator under the section labeled circumstances, the following description was provided. He, the fiancé, proceeded to contact the decedent via text message, telephone calls, and emails. Emails? For approximately an hour before he forced entry into the apartment. There is no indication in the circumstances report who provided this information about entry to the apartment. Jiminy Christmas! Emails! Oh, this guy. She's not answering a text or a phone call. I'm sure she's going to get to that email. What in the blue blazes? In a separate report, written by the same MEO investigator titled Investigation Report under the section labeled Background, the following description was provided. He, this would be the fiancé again, proceeded to try and contact the decedent via text messages, telephone calls, and emails for approximately an hour before he forced entry into the apartment. An apartment security man was reportedly present during the entry. The MEO investigator noted that all information contained within the background of this section of this report was provided by the police at the scene and the fiancé. It is not documented in the case file who specifically reported that the entry to the apartment was witnessed by apartment staff. While there are no date timestamps to verify which report was entered first, the investigation report containing the second excerpt included details of the interviews conducted after the autopsy was underway. The fiancé reported to the MEO investigator that he found Ellen unresponsive on the kitchen floor. He called 911 and was instructed to give CPR. When he began to render aid, the fiancé noticed the knife in Ellen's chest. At this point, he stopped rendering aid and awaited first responders. Okay, I got a chat because I'm pissed. So I don't know if any of you have watched the Hulu documentary, but it is clear in the photographs there, it would be pretty difficult to miss that knife sticking out of her chest.
Absolutely.
It wasn't like hidden.
No.
And I don't know. Oh, she fell on a knife. I do know he said that in the 911 call. Yeah.
He did. And misdemeanor, some of the things he said leading up to all of a sudden noticing the knife, it was clear he was looking at her. Everything he was saying in the 911 call, it was clear he was looking right at Ellen. So that's like you said, there were so many red flags in the 911 call, not just the demeanor of his voice or his actions, or like what your chat is saying. And I agree with every one of them about emailing her and waiting an hour. Who waits an hour to see if their loved one is okay? That never made any sense whatsoever.
No, absolutely not. Okay, continuing on. Where did I stop? Oh, the scene of the death was a 6th floor apartment. The apartment building was described as a gated community with 24-hour concierge service. A severe snowstorm had impacted the region near the time of the death, which resulted in several inches of snow accumulation. The MEO investigator documented the scene photographically and with a narrative report, the findings of which appear consistent with one another upon review by the undersigned. Ellen was found supine on the kitchen floor with her head and shoulders resting against the lower kitchen cabinets. At the scene, multiple stab wounds were visible on Ellen's chest and upper torso. A knife was lodged in her left chest. The knife lodged in the body appeared consistent with an overturned knife set found on the kitchen counter. Blood evidence appeared to be confined to the immediate vicinity of Ellen's body. Photographs of the scene show a pattern imprint in the blood on the floor near Ellen's right hand. The MEO investigator noted blood staining on the sole of Ellen's boot. It is the opinion of the undersigned that the patterned imprint in the blood appears consistent with the tread of Ellen's boot. There were no signs of a struggle in the apartment. No valuables were noted to be missing from the apartment. No suicide note was found at the scene. No defensive injuries were noted. The sink in the kitchen was dry and had no visible blood or tissue. 2 knives in the kitchen sink were similarly free of blood or tissue. The only sign of forced entry was at the apartment door, where a door latch was incompletely detached from the door. Undisturbed snow was present on the apartment's patio. No alternative means of entering the apartment were identified. Well, we know that. Yeah, if you, I'm seeing in the chat, some of you, lovely flight, you're asking about the font sizes. It's because I converted it to another application. So it's not them, it's me. And if the rest of you, if you have not actually gone and watched the Hulu documentary, you need to. You really need to, because there are some morsels of information there that are critical to know. A lot of the photographs. Okay. Oh gosh, I am not a medical person. So bottles for alprazolam, clonazepam, and zolpidem prescribed for the decedent were recovered from a bedside table. The decedent's cell phone was found in the apartment bathroom. The last outgoing call was made at 2:33 p.m. on 1/26/11 and lasted approximately 30 seconds. The last outgoing text message was sent at 3:47 p.m. on 1/26/11. There were multiple missed calls and incoming texts from Mr. Goldberg between 5:30 and 5:54. There were also missed calls from the apartment building's front desk between 6:07 and 6:10. Let's talk about Mr. Sam, the fiance here. This is the first police interview. No ring camera on the doors. We're talking 2011, guys. That's not something that was very commonplace 14 years ago.
Right.
Sorry, lots of reading. Got to hydrate.
Yes, keep hydrating. It is a lot of reading. One of the interesting parts about Sam's story is all of the surveillance footage from the hall, though, from the main area where he had to go to the gym, get off the elevator. He went to get mail. He went to speak to the concierge, the kind of the security guard that was in the building. And the security guard, misdemeanor, was interviewed by the News Nation. And he was very poignant in his interview, explaining that he did not go with Sam to the apartment.
Absolutely not.
Right. And he didn't come right out and say, call Sam a liar, but he alluded to it. He alluded to it. And you could tell he was so disgusted that his name was used in a lie, and that his actions that day were used in a lie. It was a very interesting interview. And to me, again, big red flags. Why are you lying about that, Sam? Why would you be lying about anything to having to do with what you were doing in the lobby?
And KS Granny, boot print has me confused. I believe the boots were like UGG style boots is what I'm remembering in the photographs. So
I believe so. I think because of the snowstorm, she would have taken off her outside boots and probably put those on when she got inside. She was making a fruit salad, by what we know of what was going on the counter. And according to his statement, she'd been grading papers.
And decided she just couldn't take it anymore.
Right. None of it adds up one little bit. And the medications you mentioned, misdemeanor, those are for anxiety. Yes. One of them I've never heard of before. It might be for depression, but citalopram is used all the time for anxiety. It's a very, very common medication. Many people use it who have stage fright, anxiety of any type, general anxiety disorder, and it has very few side effects. It's not considered, anything dangerous at all. And
I thought one was to help her sleep. It was like like an Ambien type.
Oh, yeah, that sounds right. Maybe that's the one I didn't recognize. Yeah, I think you're right. And someone mentioned on one of the feeds today that I follow, one of the people I follow on social media, it was either Facebook or the Twitter X. Here she is with these 3 bottles of medications prescribed to her in her bedroom, but yet she's going to, do the S word to herself 20 times. And I know we have to be careful what we use in words tonight, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but Melanie Little had her stream taken down because of using instead of saying unaliving. And
they were worried that she was going to take her own life when she was covering a case that was about this. Yeah, like have half a brain, YouTube. Come on.
Right, exactly. She was actually talking about Ellen, I believe.
Exactly. Yes, she was.
And how do you talk about a case that involves her being framed for her own unaliving and a massive cover up without talking about it? They don't want us to use certain words anymore, which makes no sense to me. These are words that are in the dictionary. These are words that police and investigators, I had to use in my police reports all those years ago.
Well, it's part of the manner of death on a death certificate. It's not like it's all about context. So YouTube needs to take a big old breath.
They certainly do. They certainly do.
And somebody had a question in the chat here. I'm trying to find, no defensive wounds. Does that mean she was incapacitated by the first hit? No, there are no defensive wounds. I believe because the primary attack came from behind.
I believe that you are right in that. But here's the other interesting caveat that came from the other medical examiner that the family hired. And there were Gavin Fish. If you've never followed Gavin, he has done an amazing amount of work on Ellen Greenberg's case. And he has all the case files, everything that was released to the public that he could get. He has in a file that you can all access to read. And there was medical information in there from the medical examiner that the Greenbergs hired that she had potentially been strangled.
Yes, I have seen that as well. Yes.
And I do believe that was the first attack. I do believe that he rendered her somewhat unconscious and then went forward with the knife. That's just my opinion based on what I read from this other medical examiner's reports and given the other reports. And then later we'll get to more of when you get to it. I'll mention to you why I do believe this was an ongoing domestic violence situation.
Oh, I do too. Yes. Okay. First police interview of Ellen's fiance. I love that they never say his name. What is up with that? His name is Sam Goldberg, y'all.
That's right. And his uncle was a prominent judge in Philadelphia, is now since retired.
I don't understand why we don't just have his name. Anyway, that's just my little beef.
They're protecting him misdemeanor, in my opinion.
I know. Police transported the fiance to the Northwest Detectives Division for an interview on 1/26/11 at 11:25 p.m. During this interview, the fiance said, I'm going to say Sam. All right. We're all going to say what his name actually is. During this interview, Sam said that Ellen was already home when he arrived home around 1:30 p.m. that day. While at home, Ellen was upset about her job and indicated that she wanted to quit. Sam noted that Ellen had been stressed over work for a couple weeks leading up to that day. After offering some encouragement to her, he said he left the apartment around 4:45 p.m. to use the apartment building's gym. When he left, Ellen was reportedly in the apartment grading papers. Sam then stated he returned to the apartment around 5:20 p.m. and found that the latch for the apartment door was engaged. He reported calling and texting Ellen without a response. Sam said he then went back down to the apartment building lobby to talk to the building's concierge and see if a maintenance worker was available to help with the door. He said he then proceeded back to his apartment and tried calling Ellen again and again with no response. Sam stated he forced entry to the apartment at 6:29 p.m. Of note, during this police interview, he did not claim to be accompanied by apartment building staff when he forced entry, nor was he specifically asked by police if his entry into the apartment was witnessed or not. Well, but because that's the truth. There wasn't anybody else there. When he saw Ellen on the kitchen floor, Sam said he called 911. The 911 operator reportedly asked Sam if he would be willing to provide CPR to Ellen if the operator guided him through it. Sam said he agreed, but when he got close to Ellen to start rendering aid, he saw a knife in her body.
Ms.
Sam,
Demeanor, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I have to tell you this because I know you're going to remember this and it's going to drive you crazy. He actually said to the 911 operator, and this made my dispatcher lose his mind. He said, "Do I have to?"
yes.
When she asked him to perform CPR, he said, "Do I have to?"
I have to. Oh, no, I remember.
Yeah, she went, "Yes, I'll talk you through it." And then he kind of stumbled and went, "Well, okay." I mean, unbelievable. Can you imagine your loved one? You're dying on the floor and they're asking the 911 operator, "Do I have to perform CPR?"
Yeah.
When I heard that, the first time I heard the 911 call, chills like went up my entire body.
Oh, yeah, you're a dirty dog.
I was so angry and so upset. And when I asked Steve, my former dispatcher, to give me his opinion on it, he was completely blown away. He said in all his years dispatching, no one ever asked him that. They would immediately either say, teach me over the phone. I want to do the CPR. Or they would, he would say, are you okay to do CPR? And everybody would be like, of course, yes. Who's going to say that, right? This is her fiance, Misdemeanor.
I know. Supposedly his soulmate, going to spend the rest of his life with her, which he did spend the rest of her life. I mean, he spent with her.
I'm sorry I interrupted you, but when you read that, it suddenly flashed me back to listening to his whiny little voice saying, just like he's been doing in the media for the last 2 days, whining, "Poor me. Oh, this is so horrible for me. What about me?"
That's why we're doing Wine and Crime Wednesday, and we're covering this.
I love it.
Okay. Sam reportedly informed the 911 operator of the knife, and the 911 operator advised Sam to wait for emergency responders to render aid. Timeline of pertinent events on 1/26/11. The following timeline of events compiled by the undersigned based on the Philadelphia PD's documented review of call logs, response reports, key card swipe logs from Ellen's apartment building, and surveillance video from the same location. It should be noted that there is an approximate 4-minute variation between the cited sources. KS Granny, you were asking about prints. They both lived there, so they would both have prints. It would make sense. There were not, to my understanding, any prints, any of Sam's prints in blood or anything. But then again, we didn't actually investigate the crime scene, so can't really know. Okay. 1:32 p.m., Ellen enters the parking garage of the apartment complex per key card swipe. 1:53 p.m., Sam enters the parking garage of the apartment complex per key card swipe. 4:51 p.m., Sam enters the gym of the apartment building. At 5:30 p.m., Sam is on surveillance video leaving the gym and walking toward the concierge desk in the lobby of the apartment building. 5:31 p.m., Sam is on video getting on a lobby elevator while reading mail. So at this point, I'm assuming he has not found her, which is odd, but okay.
And Misdemeanor, something I noticed when I was going over the surveillance footage, there's a man that walks through the lobby several times over the course of that hour. He's seen in the lobby, I believe, 3 times, possibly 4. Tan pants, dark jacket, similar features to Sam. It's very interesting, but longer, a little bit long. Well, similar. Sam had his hair long then, but long curly hair, dark hair. And there is a point in the surveillance where Sam drops something, and you can see it being dropped, and it looks like it's like a credit card or a key card, and you can see that he's dropped it and he keeps on walking. Several minutes later on the surveillance, that man, I called him Lobby Man, finds this. He sees it as you can see him arrow in on it with his eyes, and he bends down, picks it up, and walks away. I've always had questions about that. I have major questions about that. And I maybe you and I can, I'd love to have you come visit me on one of my live streams. And I'd love to go over some of these things with you and your group, your chickadees, because I have a lot of information I think they would be very excited to hear about, because I'm hoping that that will in turn come out eventually. Now that the Greenbergs know that their backs are truly up against the wall, I think some of this nefarious evidence is going to come out. I think it's been kept from the public all this time in hopes that a real investigation would take place.
Well, there's so much sunlight being shed on this particular case now. It was on every single network this morning.
Right.
The results.
But it still gives me the chills every time I watch. Every once in a while, I go find my surveillance video and I watch it, and I see Sam dropping that card, and I see that other guy, Lobby guy, picking it up. It's all too convenient. It's all too much in the timing of what was going on. Yep. And it has to mean something. I know it has to.
Too coincidental, and I don't believe in coinky dinkies.
No, not in this situation. And another weird thing about this guy, when he was in the lobby in the beginning, he looked normal. His pants looked normal. Another frame that I froze and took a photo of, you can see he's got something in his pockets, and it almost looks like a wad of paper towel or a wad of napkins. It's very suspect and very weird. And where he had just come from was the bathroom on the first floor of the apartment building, and he was headed back up the stairwell where he came from, all in this time frame.
Yeah, that's odd.
It's all very odd and very suspicious.
Yeah. So at 5:31, he's reading the mail as he gets on the elevator. Sam leaves a lobby elevator walking toward the concierge desk. That's at 6:10. Holy crap. That's a long time.
Right. And at some point now, he's about to call his uncle. He calls
at 6:10, goes back to the lobby. At 6:13, he's getting back on the lobby elevator. At 6:25, he's leaving the lobby elevator. And then at 6:31, he's walking through the apartment building lobby while he's on his cell phone. And that must be the uncle.
Right.
Save me. I've screwed up and now I have to deal with this kind of thing.
Exactly. So
before
calling 911, we're calling our uncle, who's a prominent judge. Now make that make sense for me, chickadees. Why are we calling our prominent judge uncle before we're calling 911, or before we're just, calling 911 to get the fire department there so they can break into the apartment and make sure she hasn't had a stroke or an aneurysm or hurt herself or took a fall, right?
So he got on the elevator and called 911 at the same time?
I'm not positive if he had to have hung up. I don't know if he hung up and then brought his uncle onto the call. There's a lot of things that are still kind of foggy to me where Sam was concerned with talking with the uncle.
Yeah, the timing on this, if he's getting on the elevator at 6:33 and the call is made by him at 6:33 and the medics respond at 6:35, my math ain't mathing on this. So something ain't right. Something ain't right. All right.
But we need to pull up the timeline at another time and really dig into the timeline, because you're right. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And I don't know if he conferenced his uncle in with the 911 call, or if he was simply obviously hung up with the uncle when he broke the door in and then called 911 and then called the uncle back. But there was definitely phone business going on with the uncle and possibly even his cousin. I believe he also called his cousin, came in.
So where are we now? Okay. PD responds at 6:37. And 3 minutes later, Ellen is pronounced deceased. 6:42, the firemen are getting on the lobby elevator. If you've watched any of the documentary, you've seen that. Police officer gets on the lobby elevator at 6:47. At 8, and then nothing. Nobody moves. Nobody's down anywhere until 8:15. Okay, sure, I'll bite on that one. Detectives from the Philadelphia PD respond at 8:27. The MEO investigator arrives at the scene, and at 9:20, homicide detective from Philadelphia PD responds. 9:55, final documented assessment of the body at the scene made by MEO investigator. And then 2 hours later, almost, Sam arrives by Northwest Detectives Division at the Philadelphia PD for questioning. Okay. MEO interviews. The assigned MEO investigator interviewed Ellen's parents on 1/27 at 7:41 a.m. One parent reported last speaking to Ellen on 1/26 around 7 a.m. During that conversation, Ellen gave no indication that something was wrong. The parents went on to tell the investigator that Ellen had been dealing with anxiety issues for several weeks leading up to her death. The parents explained that Ellen seemed anxious, insecure, not sure of herself, and not liking how she felt. She was reportedly under the care of a psychiatrist for this. Ellen's parents stated that she was stressed by her work as a school teacher. They noted that the day of Ellen's death was the due date for submitting her grades. The parents denied having any concerns about Ellen's fiancé, Sam, indicating that they were happy to have him as an in-law, describing him as a fine young man. They denied knowledge of any prior verbal or physical abuse in the relationship. They similarly denied any history of prior unaliving attempts or ideation. On 1/27/11, at 11:30 a.m., Ellen's psychiatrist was interviewed by the assigned MEO investigator. The doctor stated Ellen only recently started care and had only been seen 3 times prior to her being deceased. They indicated Ellen was being seen for severe anxiety that had persisted for approximately 2 months. Ellen indicated stress related to work, feeling overwhelmed and pressured. Ellen mentioned during a session with her psychiatrist that recent changes in school regulations and issues with difficult students were at issue. Ellen indicated she was contemplating leaving her job. The psychiatrist reported that one of Ellen's parents contacted the psychiatrist's office to convey their concern for their daughter. During psychiatric sessions, Ellen had nothing but good things to say about her fiancé, noting that Ellen smiled when speaking about him and their upcoming marriage. Ellen denied any verbal or physical abuse in the relationship when asked during her appointments. Ellen had originally been prescribed sertraline, known by the brand name Zoloft, for her anxiety, but eventually switched to alprazolam, known by the brand name Xanax. Can we not just say Xanax? And then Zolpidem, known by the brand name Ambien. There it is. With clonazepam, known by the brand name Klonopin, to help her sleep. So I have to pause for a moment here because there was a lot there. I absolutely believe she was having a lot of anxiety. I think that there was a lot going on in her life. I think there was a tremendous amount of pressure from her new fiance and his family for appearances. And anybody that has followed me knows I know a little bit about the narcissism. And that, I think, was a very, very big theme in Sam's family. And you're asking, Auntie BB2 or Aunt BB2 is saying, I've heard very little about this and it was years ago, but didn't Ellen have a girlfriend that lived out of state and she had another story? Sorry, I could be wrong. There is a girlfriend that lived out of state, and I didn't think it was a different story. I feel like it kind of fell in line, but the friend had a lot of concerns. A lot.
I think part of that stemmed from one of her friends was getting married and she was going to be in that wedding. And they noticed that she was very emotional and she was crying a lot during the fitting and not herself. And I agree with you. I think she was very stressed out about, I don't think she wanted to get married. And I think she was afraid to break up with Sam. I think she was afraid to tell her parents because they were about to send out the invitations, all the plans, everything had been booked. You can imagine what kind of pressure that would put on a young woman wanting to possibly call off her wedding. I really believe, and this is in my heart of hearts, this is only my opinion from many years of working with domestic violence, survival families, and their loved ones who did survive, including a very dear friend of mine. I believe she was being abused. I believe she was extremely unhappy and stressed out, but was afraid to tell anyone. Maybe she thought no one would believe her. Maybe it was embarrassing. There's a lot of reasons why women don't tell that they're being abused. There is no reason for a woman of her age to have 31 bruises on her body in various stages of healing, misdemeanor. There's no reason for that.
I agree with that. And I will also add to that I believe the reason she didn't tell anyone is that keeping up appearances is very important. Yeah. And I think she felt like she didn't know where to turn. But I don't think she felt so much like I don't know where to turn that she would take her own life. I don't believe that. I think it was more of a, oh my gosh, I need to sort some things out for myself. And she didn't want anybody to think she had anything other than a perfect relationship.
Exactly. And Sam, if you're right about what I think you're right about, the narcissism, narcissists do not like being told what to do. They do not like being embarrassed. They do not like being broken up with. And the most dangerous day for a woman who's in a domestic violence situation is the day she tells this partner, husband, fiance, boyfriend that she's going to break up with him. That is the most dangerous day. And if they haven't prepped for that by having someone there with them or by having an emergency exit strategy, this is what can happen. And as you know, and I heard you mention Barry Morphew in your opening, I've also been covering that situation with the death of Suzanne Morphew out in Colorado. And she was telling Barry she was leaving him. They were going to be getting divorced and she wasn't going to have any more of his shenanigans. And so this is the same pattern for many women who are unalived by their husbands or their partners.
Yeah. And in her situation, Suzanne's situation, she had somebody else.
Sort of. I mean, they were old high school friends. I think
she had an emotional connection.
Yes. I think it was more of, she was so unhappy. And a lot of us have been in situations where we've been in very unhappy situations. And sometimes having a friend to talk to is helpful as long as you don't take it too far, because you want to try and leave the bad relationship before you start a new one, because otherwise you're not being healthy with yourself or honest with yourself. And I think he definitely had already had a dalliance. I think they both had. I think their marriage had been very bad for years, according to some of the statements that have come out from family. But I do believe that she had taken it to another level of, I'm done with you, Barry. And he did not want to share that money. He did not want to share that $1 million home. Because that's what it comes down to with a lot of these narcissistic men. They unalive their women because they don't want to share custody of the children, Jennifer Farbo-Dulos. They do not want to share the money, Anna Walsh. They do not want to share anything, and they don't want you to leave them. It's going to embarrass them. It's going to embarrass them in their hyper big world that they're in. A lot of these guys are big deals in their world. Everyone thinks they're all that in a bag of chips. No one knows how horrible they are behind closed doors, but the woman who's being abused.
Absolutely. Okay. A summary of the autopsy report. The remains of Ellen Greenberg. Oh, lovely flight. I put this up here. Do we know his motive? I think he snapped. I think it was, you are not going to do this to me. Absolutely not. That's what I think the motive was. I think it was a pattern of, you're not behaving the way that I want you to behave. So therefore I have the right to beat the crap out of you.
I think it's possible he snapped, misdemeanor. I also think it's possible it was premeditated. I think Ellen had been acting probably very sad and not herself for many months. I think they probably already possibly had a conversation that she was going to leave for a while and move in with her parents. The fact that there was so much there to help the situation along, no CSI, no police investigation, neatly tied up as an unaliving, even when the original Emmy Osborne said that it was a homicide, months later, he reversed his decision after a bizarre secretive meeting.
Yeah.
It seems like everything was in place to frame her for her own unaliving. So that leads me to believe that it possibly was premeditated misdemeanor, but that's just possibly. I agree with you that it could have been a crime of passion.
I think he had a whole lot of help in covering it up, which then can make it look like it was premeditated. There were a lot of hands in this pot.
But he was awful calm and collected about his little gym tour. And for somebody who unalived his girlfriend with 20 stab wounds in a fit of rage,
we don't know when though.
Seemed awful calm and collected to me when we see him on the surveillance footage walking around and going to get the mail. And I don't know. I don't know when
that happened though. That's the problem. That could have happened 2 hours earlier. He would have had more than enough time to collect himself and make sure he had his facade on to.
That's true.
To go. We're thinking it was right before he went down there. No, it could have been hours before. So
right, they were both home for sure because of her driving into the parking garage and he arriving shortly thereafter. They were both definitely up in that apartment together for a good 2 hours, 2 hours, and about 2 hours before he went down to the gym.
Yes.
So yes, you're right. It could have been immediate. As soon as he got home, they got into it, or it could have been half an hour later. She brought up, "Hey, I'm going to leave. I'm leaving. I'm moving in with my parents." I mean, there's stuff went on there, and I think I agree with you that it could have been a fit of rage, but I also think there are some signs that it could possibly have been premeditated on his part.
Okay, with the examination starting at approximately 9 a.m., Ellen weighed 136 pounds and measured 5'7" at the time of the autopsy. The final autopsy report was printed on 4/4/11 and signed by Dr. Osborne. The signature on the final autopsy report appears to be to the undersigned to match the signatures on both the original death certificate issued by Dr. Osborne and the amended death certificate issued by Dr. Osborne on 4/4/11, after they all had a secret meeting and decided that this is what they needed to do.
Exactly.
Dr. Osborne's autopsy was notable for 20 stab and incised wounds of Ellen's chest, abdomen, posterior scalp, and neck, which were arbitrarily designated wounds A through T. All the wounds were described as having associated soft tissue hemorrhage. 8 of these stab wounds were on the chest and posterior neck, penetrating only 0.2 or 0.3 centimeters. That's less than an 1/8 inch deep. Just a little stab that you gave yourself, just a little one, with only superficial soft tissue injured. 5 of these stab wounds were on the chest and posterior neck, penetrating 1.4 to, I'm going to use inches, between 2 and 7/8 inch deep, with no vital structures injured. 1 stab wound on the posterior neck penetrated approximately 1 3/16 inches deep. That's pretty significant.
Yeah.
With no vital structures injured. The depth of penetration was not documented for the incised wound of the posterior right scalp. So, but that wound is significant on the scalp wound.
Oh, yeah. It's large. It's like this. It was like this long.
It's a couple inches anyway, isn't it?
Yeah. It's very significant.
The 5 remaining stab wounds documented in the autopsy report are summarized by the undersigned as follows. Stab wound E, perforations of the aortic arch in the left lung. That's 10 centimeters. They don't give it to me in inches. Sorry, y'all. Associated hemopericardium, left hemothorax, and right hemothorax. Serrated knife recovered from the wound. Stab wound H, perforation of the chest wall, penetration of the liver. Oof. Unspecified volume of associated intra-abdominal hemorrhage, stab wound perforation of the abdominal wall, penetration of the mesentery, associated intramesenteric hemorrhage, unspecified volume of associated intra-abdominal hemorrhage. Stab wound N is perforations of dura at skull base and intracranial blood vessels overlying the cerebellum. So this was one of the things when I was at CrimeCon that was discussed. If the dura is penetrated, you ain't moving.
No.
You're done. You are done.
Yeah.
So I don't know how the dura is penetrated in the skull area, and we still can figure out a way to stab ourselves in the chest, because that's what would have to happen.
Not unlike John O'Keefe misdemeanor, the wound to his head was considered a life-ending wound. That there was no coming back from that head injury that he sustained.
Yeah. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Stab wound T, perforations of the posterior neck muscles and dura of the spine between the second and third cervical vertebrae. So another penetration. Am I reading that right? Yeah, it's a separate stab wound.
Sounds like it.
Penetrated the dura. What in the world? Associated focal epidural hemorrhage of the spinal canal. In the autopsy report, the cervical spinal cord was described as bulging near the defect of the cervical spine dura. Per the report, this segment of spinal cord was submitted by Dr. Lucy Rourke, a neuropathologist practicing at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, for examination. Seemingly contradictory statements about the outcome of that examination were included in the autopsy report. On the findings and opinions page of the report, Dr. Osborne wrote, the spinal cord injury was evaluated grossly by neuropathology. It was concluded that the injury to the spinal cord would not have incapacitated it's supposed to be decedent. Therefore, the decedent would be able to inflict the subsequent stab wounds to her body. Sure. However, on page 6 of the report of examination, in the description of stab wound T of neck, Dr. Osborne wrote, note, neuropathologist Dr. Lucy Rourke examined the spinal cord and concluded there is no defect of the spinal cord. But then she came back and said, no, that's not what I said. There was a defect. I said I didn't know how the defect got there, whether it was during the autopsy or before. That was my understanding of what Lucy said. Other pertinent findings in the autopsy report were multiple contusions on Ellen's right upper arm, right forearm, abdominal wall, right thigh, and near her right knee. Dr. Osborne summarized these contusions as being in various stages of resolution. The healing, y'all. Dr. Osborne affirmatively stated there were no petechia in the conjunctive, nor were there injuries to the lips, oral cavity, external genitalia, perineum, anus, or vaginal canal. He also affirmatively reported that there were no injuries of Ellen's anterior neck muscles, hyoid bone, or thyroid cartilage of the larynx. Details from the review of the autopsy report and photographs. In general, the undersigned agrees with the findings documented in the autopsy report when compared to the photographs taken at autopsy. However, there are omissions and errors regarding the documented injuries in the autopsy report that require attention. Stab and incised wounds, external findings. Dr. Osborne documented and described a total of 20 stab and incised wounds in his final autopsy report, which appears to correspond with notes taken by Dr. Osborne during the autopsy. Autopsy photographs demonstrate 3 additional perforations in the skin. Oh, so we're up to 23 now, which were unaccounted for in Dr. Osborne's report and notes. Specifically, there is 1 small vertically oriented perforation in the skin of the posterior right neck, 1 small obliquely oriented perforation in the skin on the right side of the neck, and 1 small horizontally oriented perforation in the skin of the upper chest. All these perforations have photographically documented soft tissue hemorrhage and are less than 3/16 of an inch in length when compared with scales in the photographs. It is the opinion of the undersigned that these omitted injuries did not result in significant internal injury. Internal findings. The described internal injuries associated with stab wound E do not completely correspond with the photographic documentation. Imagine that. There were no reported perforations of the pericardium or its contents, yet there was 120 milliliters of blood in it. Based on review of the photographs, it is the opinion of the undersigned that the stab wound E, in fact, extended through the pericardium and into the ascending aorta. What? Oh, Lord. Whether there was also a perforation of the aortic arch, as stated in the report, cannot be adequately assessed by the autopsy photographs. It also appears, based on photographs, that this stab wound resulted in penetration of the right lung. Whether there was also an injury to the left lung, as stated in the report, cannot be adequately assessed by the autopsy photographs. There are small but significant omissions in the description of the internal injuries associated with stab wound N. On the surface of the anterior right side of the pons at the right middle cerebellar peduncle is a superficial incised wound with hemorrhage. This incision is best seen on photos of the brain taken after formalin fixation. The hemorrhage visible in the incision indicates it was an antemortem injury and not an artifact from the autopsy process. Dr. Osborne's report also describes subarachnoid hemorrhage on the cerebellar vermis and right cerebellar hemisphere, which corresponds with autopsy photographs. However, these photographs also show subarachnoid hemorrhage on the left cerebellar, I don't know how you say that, hemisphere near the vermis, on the inferior aspect of the right temporal lobe of the brain near the foramen magnum, and on the anterior right sides of the pons and medulla. These areas of subarachnoid hemorrhage were visible in photographs of the brain both at the time of the autopsy and after formalin fixation. Well, that's new to me. So this incised wound on the brain, it says superficial, but then later on, aren't we saying that it was post death? No, antemortem. My bad. Sorry. Prior to death. My bad, y'all. Post is after, ante is before.
But there is an injury that one of the medical examiners that her parents hired said was post.
Yes. That's one of the things that's in conflict, is what my understanding is.
Yes. Yeah. And when you get to it, I'll hold until you get to it, because this will be something else is really strange that this person says coming up. This ME.
Blunt impact injuries, external findings. Dr. Osborne's autopsy report described a total of 11 contusions on the right upper arm, right forearm, one in the upper arm, 3 on the right forearm, 1 right lower abdomen, and 6 on the right thigh. Why are they all on the right side of her body? Are those defensive wounds? Anyway.
I think it's possible, because I believe the other ME said that there were defensive wounds.
And I'm talking about like from prior altercations. Like is that her go-to to protect herself?
Very possible. That's right. But I do believe the other ME thought that there were some defensive wounds.
Yes.
So there's definitely conflict with the MEs in this case.
There is no description in the autopsy report to indicate which of these contusions Dr. Osborne believed to be resolving. It is the opinion of the undersigned that the described contusion of the right upper arm and some of the contusions of the right forearm and thigh were resolving. The remaining documented contusions of the right forearm, abdomen, and thigh appear to be more recent. I believe Aunt BB2 that she was indeed right-handed. That's what I recall. After review of the photographs, the undersigned identified the following contusions, which were all omitted from the autopsy report. These injuries have been subdivided into those documented in Dr. Osborne's autopsy notes and those that were completely undocumented. The commentary on the color and shape of the contusions is that of the undersigned. Holy smokes. What?
Yep. That's an awful lot of contusions to be on the body of one young woman.
Okay, let's go through this list. Contusions documented in the autopsy notes, but omitted from the final report. 2 round, faint brown contusions right mid buttock. 1 round, faint red contusion right lower buttock. 1 round, faint brown contusion right upper shin. 2 round, faint blue contusions anterior mid left forearm. 1 round red purple contusion anterior medial mid distal left forearm. 1 round faint red brown contusion anterior left thigh. How do you get bruises on your thighs?
So regarding the buttocks bruises, 2 things could be true here. If she were to have been shoved or pushed and she fell, and if you land really hard on your bum, you're going to get a bruise. I know because I've had one on my bum for taking a bad fall. Also, domestic abusers, they like to kick. They like to kick their victims when they're down, when they've like shielding from them and they get into a ball to self-protect.
Gotcha.
They like
that
to kick their
more sense.
Mm-hmm.
3 round faint red-brown contusions left upper shin. Contusions omitted from both the autopsy notes and the final report. 1 irregularly shaped faint red contusion superior left forehead near the hairline. Ay, ay, ay. 1 very small round faint blue purple contusion right side of the neck below the level of the previously described stab wounds on the right neck. 1 very small round faint blue purple contusion anterior neck near the medial edge of the left sternocleidomastoid, I can't say that, muscle. 1 faint brown contusion central right lower chest near the edge of the rib cage. Oh dear. 2 irregularly shaped faint green yellow contusions anterior medial distal right thigh. 1 round faint green yellow contusion lateral right on the hip again, or in that same area, right hip, slightly below and posterior to the contusion of the abdominal wall described in the autopsy report. 1 round faint red brown contusion medial right thigh near knee. 1 round faint red brown contusion medial left thigh near the knee. Y'all. This is a lot. This is a lot of bruises.
Yes, it is.
I consider myself, especially as I get older, to be pretty clumsy. I do not have, and I bruise easily. I do not have injuries like this on my body.
No, we all have bruises from time to time. And thank you. You guys have been great in the chat tonight with all your contribution. Yes, we've all run into the bedpost, or I actually ran into my file cabinet earlier before I joined you tonight. And so, yes, we all have bruises occasionally on our body, but not this many in that many varying stages of healing. And the green, yellow ones, those are relatively new. They were probably a week to 2 weeks old. Now, I'm not a doctor or a nurse, but I know from myself, when you get a bruise, usually it's turning that green yellow color as it's healing. So it's not the color at the beginning. That's usually more what happens. I know if any of you have had bruising, you can probably relate to this. You get that really kind of sickly yellowish green color, and that's usually days after. So these injuries, based on the color patterns that Dr. Osborne, talked about in his first evaluation, and the ME that the Ellen's parents hired, these were all in various stages of healing, which shows you that she is having things hurting her body on and on and on and on and on. Just when one heals, she gets a new one. Then she's got another one. And then there's another one. I mean, that's practically daily, or at least every other day.
Yeah. And I see Lovely Flight said, okay, so the cause of death is multiple stab wounds. I thought for some reason it was exsanguination. So that she bled internally and externally. Am I wrong in that?
And that's what's interesting, Misdemeanor, because in the photos of the apartment, there was not. Now, when Sam's on the 911 call, oh, there's blood everywhere. Well, there really wasn't. When you look at the crime scene photos, where did the rest of the blood go? What happened to it? And the ME that they hired to do this, he said he or she thought for sure that the body had been moved. And they gave very good explanations. Now, I'd like to be able to see and read that ME report and compare it to this one. That would be something really interesting for us to do down the line.
And Christine, Life by the Sea, did she have any friends that she would have told, or did he isolate her from friends? I don't think he isolated her. I think she was making some choices based on his influence, but all of her friends tell the same story, that they were concerned about her because she wasn't her normal cheerful,
happy, right?
Yeah. She was not the effervescent soul that she had always been in the past. So, okay. There are also
classic signs of a domestic abuse pattern.
Yeah. There are also internal findings of blunt impact, which were not described in Dr. Osborne's report. Autopsy photographs of the anterior neck dissection show 2 discrete areas of hemorrhage in the right sternothyroid muscle at the level of the thyroid gland. It should be noted that, depending on the orientation of the body when these injuries occurred, they may correspond to the surface contusion on the anterior neck described above. That's the snagging, and yeah. Summary of events. Following Ellen's autopsy, Dr. Osborne certified the cause of death as multiple stab wounds and the manner of death as homicide. Yay, that was correct. Good job, Dr. Osborne.
Right. He got it right the first time. And there should have been an investigation immediately. But 2 months later, they encourage him to change it to. Since when did the police ever get to encourage an ME to change something?
No.
That's unheard of. That's the medical examiner's job. That's what they're trained to do, to determine the cause of death. The police do not determine cause of death. They give you what they find in the evidence. They give you what they find from their interviews. If they had done a proper police investigation, of which they didn't do.
They couldn't. They cleared the scene.
They had the apartment cleaned the very next day.
Yep.
They released the scene within 24 hours, very much like Sandra Birchmore. When somebody's trying to cover up and unaliving them themselves to frame that person for taking their own life, they're going to hurry up and clean up that crime scene.
A detective from the homicide unit of the Philadelphia PD was assigned to investigate. The knife recovered from the body, clippings of Ellen's fingernails, the clothing worn by Ellen at the time of the incident, and a sample of Ellen's blood were released from the MEO to the police for testing. Police returned to Ellen's apartment on 128 and collected from there her engagement ring, several grade books, teacher resource books, and money in an envelope labeled trip money. These items were submitted into evidence per copies of property receipts. On 129, you see how many days that is, guys? This KS Granny, this happened in Pennsylvania. On 129/11, police collected 3 laptop computers and 1 iPhone from a male relative of Ellen's, from Sam. From a male relative of Sam's. These items were submitted for forensic analysis. On 2/1/11, police submitted swabs of brown stains on the apartment's kitchen cabinet, freezer door handle, and countertop for serology testing. I'm not really sure what they were planning on doing with that because they didn't care about anything. But on 2/25/11, police were contacted by the apartment building's property manager. The property manager reported that Ellen's parents were at the building to collect some of Ellen's belongings. At some point that day, one of the parents used the lobby restroom near the building's gym and discovered a small amount of blood. This parent proceeded to station themselves at the door to the bathroom and requested
Guess who was in the restroom, misdemeanor? That guy in the lobby?
Our lobby dude?
He was seen heading in that direction and coming back from that direction with his pockets full of what looked to me like paper towels.
Stationed themselves at the door to the bathroom and requested that police come and test the blood for DNA. The property manager reassured them that the bathroom was used regularly by both residents and guests. They also informed them that the bathroom was cleaned twice daily and pointed to a wet floor sign indicating the bathroom had recently been cleaned. Officers from the police crime scene unit responded, photographed the area, and sampled the blood for testing. A summary of police interviews. Police interviews of the apartment building concierge. 12811. The concierge reported to police that Sam came to the front desk sometime between 6 and 7 p.m. on 12611. At that time, Sam reportedly indicated that he was locked out of his apartment. The concierge described Sam as appearing agitated and sweaty during this trip to the front desk. Due to their position at the desk, the concierge reported they could only see Sam's blue t-shirt and short pants. Although the concierge offered a master key to unlock the apartment door, Sam reportedly declined the offer, saying the door was locked from the inside. Huh? Okay. The concierge reportedly instructed Sam to return to the 6th floor and call out to Ellen while the concierge attempted to call her from the front desk. Sam reportedly left the lobby and went toward the elevators. Boy, did they cover his name up in here. We're not. I'm going to say it as much as I need to.
Yep, they sure did.
During one of the concierge's multiple attempts to call Ellen, Sam reportedly returned to the front desk. According to the concierge, Sam appeared a little more agitated than he had at his first visit to the front desk. When Sam was informed that there was no tool to open the door latch from the outside, he reportedly requested to speak to the building's maintenance supervisor. The concierge reportedly dialed the maintenance supervisor and gave the phone to Sam. After that phone call, Sam reportedly left the front desk again. Shortly after Sam left the front desk the second time, firefighters reportedly arrived at the building. The concierge reportedly escorted the firefighters to the elevator and then returned to the front desk until summoned to the 6th floor to speak to the police. When they went to speak with the police on the 6th floor, the concierge described Sam as sitting in the hallway and that he was clearly upset. Hang on, I got to catch up in the chat here. What do we have going on here? Oh yes, wouldn't we love Dr. Russell or Dr. Laposada to take care of this one?
Yes, for sure. That would have been great.
Yeah. How many of them involve multiple holes does one do to their? Oh yeah, they don't. They don't. People don't commit.
And misdemeanor, it's the rarest form of unaliving.
Especially for a female.
And especially for a female, but for anybody. And you guys can Google it, you can look it up. Everything's out there now, but that is a very rare way for someone to take their own life. You just don't see it. And if it is, it's the way you see it in the movies where someone will get into a tub and they will unalive themselves in the old fashioned way. And that is very rare. So for them to expect us to believe that this young woman repeatedly did this to herself over 20 times, it makes absolutely zero sense.
Especially when there was medication available for her.
Correct. But I just don't believe she was ever at that level. She had never been, right. It's okay. Go lay down. Go lay down, Peggy. She had never had any of those thoughts prior, as far as we know, and as far as others know. Go help, Peggy. Go lay down. Go lay down.
Correct. When asked by police about Ellen's relationship with Sam, the concierge described Ellen as being very excited about a package that was arriving, reportedly the wedding invitations. Police interview the apartment building maintenance supervisor. This is on 128. The maintenance supervisor was reportedly called by the building concierge around 6:30 p.m. regarding a lockout in 603. The maintenance supervisor reportedly offered the master key to unlock the apartment, to which the concierge replied that they were asking for a tool to unhook the inside door latch to the apartment. The concierge reportedly handed the phone to Sam, who proceeded to explain that the inside door latch was engaged. He reportedly went on to say that he had tried calling Ellen's name and pounding on the door without getting a response. The maintenance supervisor reported that Sam indicated he was getting worried about Ellen and asked permission to kick the door down. The maintenance supervisor reportedly replied that kicking wasn't necessary and that Sam could shoulder the door open. The maintenance supervisor reportedly told Sam not to worry about the latch, implying consent to shoulder the door open. The maintenance supervisor described Sam as sounding concerned about his fiancée during their discussion. When asked about Ellen's relationship with Sam, the maintenance supervisor said they lived like a very happy couple. And Heidi, I was just talking with some of my coworkers today about this case. And yeah, if you were feeling like self-exiting, you wouldn't be cutting up a fruit salad. As I describe it, it's like, just kind of came home. We're going to get a snowstorm. I'm just slicing some oranges and maybe, some limes or something. I'm going to put it all in a fruit salad. And looky there, I've got a knife. I mean, no, this is not what happens. And Christine, Life by the Sea, I do not know the answer to this. I would think the more attention will help. The question is, what are the chances of the feds to get involved, federal indictments?
Well, the only way the feds do get involved, guys, is if there is evidence of some type of police corruption. If they which is how they got involved with Sandra Birchmore, right? There was evidence of some type of collusion or corruption. And usually in most states, now I'm in Florida now, and I know this is true in Wisconsin, where I'm originally from too, is when a police department is in charge of a case, so we'll use Philadelphia as the example, they have to say to the state police, we can't solve this. We want you to take it. The state police can't just swoop in and take a case because we're all upset and we want that to be the case. They have to release it. They have to say, we can no longer solve this case. Now, in Ellen's case, they never had to do that because they closed it. They called it an unaliving of herself and they closed the case. So that was a real problem right then and there, because the state is then not going to come in and overturn what the ME said and what the police are then saying that they've closed the case. It's not protocol, right? So then you have to have some type of evidence of collusion or corruption in order for the higher powers to get involved.
Well, I think there probably is some evidence of that. So
I hope so. I really do. But what the heck's taken them so long? That's my concern.
Well, we're not going to know until,
I realize the case you just covered with Donna, the Adelson case, that took 9 years to finally get.
Oh yeah.
Where we are today. And we may not be done yet, right? They may come for Wendy. That knock, knock might be coming.
Well, it was 11 years total. Yeah. Cause it was 2014. Right. It happened.
Right.
So and by the way, since we're touching base on Donna Adelson, I did forget to tell you all this at the beginning of our live tonight. I did some digging, and because there are a lot of questions about whether the grand jury that was meeting in Florida is in reference to possibly Harvey or Wendy, because Georgia Kappelman was seen there. I can assure all of you it did not have anything to do with Wendy or Harvey Adelson. Based on what's being offered to the grand jury, based on the witnesses that are coming in, it's part of the Hope Florida case where there is some corruption as far as foundation that was created and funds funneled in an indiscreet way. So that's what the grand jury was about. It's not about the Adelsons as much as we all want it to be. It was not. So everybody can take a deep breath. And we just have to wait longer. Be patient.
Misdemeanor Christine said, asked Christine Life by the Sea, is the autopsy change a collusion? Well, it certainly could be. I mean, this is what I'm confused about too, Misdemeanor, is that Osborne came back out back in February, right before they were picking the jury for the trial against the city, and completely changed everything and said, I'm saying that I was wrong. There was a lot of factors, at hand at the time. I mean, that's definitely some type of evidence that there was some collusion going on. So if they have looked into that since he made that statement, that retraction, and where in this document, I'm wondering if we'll see it. I don't know if we'll get to the whole thing tonight or not, but does she mention that? Does this new ME mention that Osborne actually retracted himself?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I'm reading it cold. So
yeah, I know. I'm cold now too. I scanned the beginning of it, but I wanted to go cold with you for the rest of it. But I think that By the Sea is right about that these are definitely red flags, like you said here, Misdemeanor. And these are definitely signs that something was not right, that something is awry here. And I think when you're dealing with the family of a prominent judge and all of the other rumors that we have heard relating to a certain organization that they may have represented or didn't represent at one time, you're getting into high level corruption.
Yes. All the way up to the governor.
All the way to the governor, which is it's dangerous. It can be dangerous for people. And I was always concerned a little bit about Gavin and about Joel from Surviving the Survivor, because of how heavy they were covering this. And when I covered it pretty heavy last January and February, a couple people wrote to me and said, yes, you're a small creator, you have a small channel, but you're saying in your opinion that you think that Sam did this and that his uncle was involved, and you're accusing people of could potentially have been involved in crimes that were other crimes that no one knows about in the state of Philadelphia. And you really want to be careful. And we do, but we have to call out corruption, though. If we all just stay home and don't say anything, that's how it gets so bad like this. And this is how families get devastated by police corruption and dirty cops and dirty government.
So Emma Jade asked, wow, how do you know what happened at the grand jury? I don't know what happened at the grand jury, but I know who was leaving the grand jury courtroom. And those individuals are prominent figures in this Hope, Florida case. And Georgia Kappelman is also working with the state attorney on that case. And so it would make sense to me that's why they were there. So I don't have an in, and nobody's talking to me like that craziness that happened up there in Massachusetts. No, it's nothing like that, y'all. It's just, you're going to see witnesses going in. Okay. We may have to skim some of this. This is the apartment building property manager. This is the one, because I want to get close or further down into this report. The building property manager was instructed that it was okay to clean the apartment, if I am remembering correctly. On the 6th floor, the property manager reportedly saw Sam sitting in the hallway with other emergency personnel. When a medic exited unit 603, they reportedly informed Sam of Ellen's death. After this notification, the property manager reportedly helped Sam call his family while staying in the hallway with him and police officers. The property manager reportedly noted that Sam was wearing sneakers while sitting in the hallway. The property manager reportedly overheard Sam tell police that Ellen was stressed about work. When police asked him why Ellen would latch the door when he went to use the gym, Sam reportedly responded, "I don't know." Coffee nut? Yes. No, not there. Although, are you talking about Philadelphia? Yes, I believe he does still live in the Philadelphia area. Eventually, several members of Sam's family reportedly arrived at the apartment building. At this point, the property manager reportedly left the 6th floor and met the family members downstairs, keeping them downstairs while awaiting word from the police. When the property manager asked police if Sam's family was allowed to go upstairs to see him, police reportedly responded that no family was permitted upstairs. The property manager then reportedly requested that an officer come downstairs to answer the family's questions. The property manager then reportedly escorted police to several apartments on the 6th floor so that police could interview the neighbors. At approximately 10:30 p.m., everyone, including Sam, reportedly left the 6th floor except for one police officer who guarded the door to Unit 603. Sam was reportedly witnessed getting into a police vehicle and leaving the premises with his family following. More police officers reportedly arrived at the apartment building sometime between 2 and 2:30 a.m. to remove Ellen's body and lock the apartment door behind them. On the morning of 1/27, the property manager reportedly asked police if they could enter the apartment, which police advised against due to the nature of the scene. The property manager then reportedly requested permission from the police to hire professionals to clean the apartment, which was granted. Neighbor A knocking. He heard at 5:30, between 5:30 and 5:45, he heard knocking on the apartment door, asking to be let inside. After 15 minutes, after 15 minutes in their apartment, neighbor A walked back into the hallway and reportedly told Sam that the front desk had a master key. This is all, Sam reportedly forcibly pushed open the door to show neighbor A the problem. While this neighbor couldn't see the latch engaged at this point, they reportedly noted the latch reverberating and making noise when the fiancé pushed the door, when Sam pushed the door. According to neighbor A, it was clear the door was latched. After that encounter, neighbor A returned to their apartment. I don't think there's anything. At 6:40, neighbor A overheard multiple people talking in the hallway. That would have been all the first responders at that point. Neighbor B saw Sam wearing a blue t-shirt, Nike shorts, and a Nike FRE shoes, really light shoes. Approximately 30 minutes later, while in the apartment, neighbor overheard Sam in the hallway saying that she was bleeding from the head, that there was a lot of blood, and there was a knife. What? Then reportedly overheard Sam answering questions in the hallway while intermittently sobbing. Was he on the phone still? It must be to law enforcement. This is very unclear to me.
I think I actually think I'd have to go look it up. It's in my big file deck. I'm pretty sure his cousin came to the scene. Either his cousin and his uncle or just his cousin. I've got it in my notes, and maybe when we meet again, I can update you guys on that. But I know for sure one of his relatives came to the scene, came to the apartment.
Good grief.
Yeah.
And Ellen's psychiatrist, we kind of already know what this is. She stated that there were no issues in the relationship. She was just feeling a little stressed about a lot of change that was happening in her life. Students' grades. All three friends reported Ellen as being deeply unhappy with her job, saying things like she didn't know if she could do this anymore. She wanted to quit her job. She hated her job, and allegedly telling a friend, maybe I should just get pregnant and I can take off work and not go back. Two of the interviewed friends described Ellen as being more isolated, disinterested in past hobbies, and subdued in the weeks leading up to the fatal incident. I'm just kind of glancing here because with 32 pages.
It's a lot. You're going to need some throat lotions after this is over, misdemeanor.
I'm kind of looking for highlights. I'm less interested in what the friends have to say. I'm more interested in what Sam has to say and what the autopsy actually says, because a lot of this is in the documentary.
Right.
What
I think would be interesting is does she compile a list of all the reasons why she decided that this was an unaliving of herself? Because we can practically take down every one of those. I read through a couple of them here and there in the last 2 days, but it's really quite something how she manages to make it look like that this was an unaliving very conveniently.
Well, that's why I kind of want to get through some of the interviews and that. But this is second interview with Sam.
Okay, good.
Sam elaborated on his prior statement to police given on the night of the incident. He described Ellen as being very stressed out about school the day of her death. Specifically, Ellen worked as a first grade teacher and her grades were due. First grade, y'all. It's first grade. He stated Ellen was trying to work on the day of the incident, but seemed unable to concentrate. He described Ellen as seeming to have lost confidence in her teaching abilities at the beginning of 2010 school year, and that this caused her work to take over her life. Ellen reportedly avoided social events with more frequency near the time of the incident, citing work-related excuses. In January, when Ellen started getting depressed, she reportedly asked Sam if he would still love her if she was crazy. He reportedly assured Ellen that his love was unconditional. At some point, Ellen also reportedly told Sam that she just wanted to feel like her old self again. Ellen was reportedly under the care of a psychiatrist. We know about this. Sam denied knowledge of any prior self-harm or having serious concerns about Ellen's mental state prior to the incident. The only health concerns Ellen had that Sam was reportedly aware of were night sweats and episodes of an elevated heart rate. Sam explained that he didn't force entry into the apartment sooner on the day of the incident because he thought perhaps Ellen was in the shower, working with headphones on, or napping. Ellen would reportedly only latch the apartment door shut when she went to sleep or when Sam traveled. Reportedly, Ellen did not normally latch the door shut when Sam went to the gym. Sam reported speaking to a neighbor in the hallway while he was trying to enter the apartment on the night of the incident. This neighbor reportedly suggested that Sam go to the front desk to get a spare key. Sam reportedly responded that he had his keys, but the door was latched from the inside. When Sam forced entry into the apartment and called 911, he reportedly agreed. This is not him saying anything. He reportedly saw the knife in her chest and informed the 911 operator of the same. Yeah, well, sort of. 911 operator reportedly advised him to stop attempting to render aid at that point. Sam denied any prior domestic issue with Ellen requiring police or parental involvement. While at the police department on this date, Sam volunteered a DNA sample for police to use as a comparison to DNA on evidence from the incident. Ooh, spit it out, Janet. Coworkers definitely stated that she was very stressed. I'm not going to go through all of this part. I'm, again, more interested in, oh, this is interesting. Text messages and phone calls. Yeah, let's look at some of this. The call log, outgoing calls. She made a call to a coworker at 1:09, and then made a call to a number that was not saved in her contacts. Oh, it was a restaurant. Then she talks to or texts a friend, and then missed calls. 5:24, there is a missed call from a family friend. 6 calls from Sam, and then another call from an individual that was in her contacts at 5:42. Then 7 more calls from Sam from 5:47 to 6:03. 2 more calls from 6:11 to 6:13 from Sam, and then 6:21, a call from the front desk. And again at 6:25, a call from Sam. Heidi, you are asking, was there another entrance into the apartment? Was the door really latched from the inside, or was he making it up? Well, the only other way to enter the apartment would have been through the balcony, which there was fresh snow, so no one came through there. As far as whether he was making it up about the door being latched, I don't think he was making it up, but I don't necessarily believe that you can't latch that closed from the outside. And they lived on the 6th floor.
I think he rigged it.
I do too, because when he broke into it, it would have looked different if it were truly latched. So yeah,
Correct.
there was
There'd be more damage to the door frame, misdemeanor.
Yes.
And if you guys are interested, Gavin Fish did his own experiment. He did damage to his own office door. He did his own experiment and showed how much damage there should have been to the door frame had Sam truly had to break in to the apartment.
Right. What is next here about their relationship, mental state, and health? I think we've beat this to death. I'm not really sure how. We're still talking about it. Might explain why it's 32 pages long. Last exchange of messages from Ellen's phone, 1:51 p.m. Person says, so sick, it's been miserable. Ellen says, oh no. Person says, yeah, feel like I've tried everything, but nothing is working. Ellen says, well, that's the thing. It feels that way for a reason. Person says, I guess it's not fun though. Hopefully it goes away by 12 weeks. I'm assuming they must be pregnant. How many now? 7. Ellen says, OMG. Person says, I know. I think it's a friend of hers. Friend says, I know, crazy, right? If I wasn't so sick, I wouldn't believe it. Ellen says, bahaha, I love it. When do you go to the doctor? Friend says, Tuesday a.m. Maybe then it will seem real. Ellen says, yay. Friend, how have you been this week? Ellen, my great. I want to scream. And grades are due tonight, and I can't seem to get them done. Friend, ugh. Friend also says, scan some to me. I'll do after work tonight. That was at 3:47 p.m. So the last text message Ellen sent was at 3:41. After this is when 9 separate unanswered texts from Sam between 5:32 and 6:11. Psychiatric records again, first appointment, second appointment, third appointment. We kind of already know this. Serology. There was human blood detected on the upper kitchen cabinet. Now, mind you all, this was after the apartment had already been professionally cleaned because they did not take anything initially. So this was what was left afterward. 1 swab of a stain from the upper handle of the freezer and a stain from the kitchen countertop near the stove. They were all tested. It was all human blood. Fingerprint testing, the knife recovered from Ellen's chest was checked for prints. 2 non-usable prints were found. And yes, Heidi, we are talking about an inside the hotel room type of latch that it's like shaped like an L, and then it goes this way and that way, depending on whether you have it like dead bolted or such. Forensic toxicology test results revealed subtherapeutic levels of pretty much everything she was taking. Underpants were collected during the autopsy. Swab of the handle. The swab on the handle doesn't look like anything was recovered. I mean, was found from that. Bloodstains from the posterior left sleeve of Ellen's sweatshirt collected at autopsy. Bloodstains from the anterior right sleeve of her sweatshirt. A mixture of at least 2 DNA profiles was recovered from the underpants. The DNA mixture is consistent with having originated from Ellen and Sam. Okay, so a single DNA profile was detected on the other listed items. Trying to find the tidbits, guys. The computers. The computers. 6 files found by keyword search unaliving. No date. 4 documents saved as last names. I don't know what PGA and LPGA. I guess I don't know what that means. 7 files found by keyword search depressed. 6 files found by keyword search unalive, and 1 found by keyword search unalive methods. Now, let me get finished with the rest of the electronics here, and we'll talk a little bit about this. The laptop recovered 0 files found by keyword searches for unalive, depressed, or unalive methods. Due to the highly technical and specialized terminology used in this report, the undersigned is unable to comment further on the findings in this report. So what I will tell you all is, after the apartment was cleaned professionally, Sam and his uncle went to the apartment and retrieved electronic devices of Ellen's. It is known that you can tamper with an electronic device and you can put searches on those devices to make it appear that those searches took place sometime prior to current. So it's possible that was all done while the electronic devices were in Sam's family's possession.
Absolutely, Ms. Demeanor. And the other point that's important to make too is how the medical examiner's report hadn't come in yet. How are you releasing an apartment to be cleaned? How are you allowing the uncle of a potential suspect, because this could have been a potential domestic violence? Any cop with any training would know that the first suspect would be the fiance, the boyfriend, or the husband. So how is it that you're allowing uncle to enter this apartment? Why was this apartment not secured? Why was this apartment cleaned the day after, before any investigation was completed? These are very disturbing facts of this case.
Yes. And that's how they were able to, I believe how some of this, you can't count on any of that evidence being worth anything because there was no appropriate chain of custody.
Correct. And they never brought in a CSI unit to investigate.
No.
That it makes absolutely no sense. It just screams cover up. I mean, if you want to scream cover up, that's how you scream it.
And they did get some blood stains from the bathroom floor in the apartment and the toilet paper holder in the bathroom. The samples were reported as originating from one unidentified male. So that adds to it even more.
Yeah. And I like what Kelly in Texas says, that's very possible. I'd like to see that police report. And, technically, I'm going to see if I can dig up some of those. I think Gavin has most of the police reports all on his website, Misdemeanor, because I agree with Kelly. I think it's very possible that was not an officer that told the manager to clean the apartment. And I'm confused that the manager, I would love to speak to her because I'm confused that she would think it was okay to even do that. You know,
I know.
managers deal with crimes in their buildings. They have, I'm sure they had at least one break-in in that place. I'm sure she's talked to police before, detectives.
Well, I mean, it was 24 hours. Good grief.
Right. It's unheard of. I mean, like I said, there's so many similarities to Sandra Birchmore and to Ellen Greenberg because they were both framed for their own death. And to me, it's one thing to frame someone like Karen Reed was framed. She's alive. She can defend herself. She can hire attorneys. Sandra Birchmore and Ellen Greenberg are dead. They cannot defend themselves. And to me, framing someone for their own unaliving is the most egregious act that can ever be done to somebody.
Well, I agree. This is one of the things I was curious to see. And I just want to say, thank you, Melissa.
Yes, thank you, Melissa. How nice of you.
Thanks for hanging out with us. It's a long one tonight. Sorry.
If they've ever been to my channel, they know how windy I get, Misdemeanor. We go 2-3 hours, so you're good. You're good.
This is what I wanted to see. This is Dr. Cyril Wecht, and his summary of the autopsies is that unaliving stabbings rarely have multiple stab wounds. They are unlikely to be from in the posterior neck and head. Unaliving may have cuts or tentative stabbings to see if it hurts or to work up courage. They usually only have one significant wound, most likely to the chest. Frequently will leave a note. There was none.
Right.
No prior ideation.
That's a great point, Misdemeanor. There is no way in HE double hockey sticks, for all of you that are boomers like me, you know that old saying, that Ellen Greenberg would not say goodbye to her parents. She was so close to them. She loved them so much. That's so evident in everything they've said in their interviews and everything that they've done to get. You will never make me believe in a million years, just for the simple fact that there was no unaliving note left, because there is no way Ellen would do that to her dear parents. She had texted with her mother that very morning, and they had their little text thing where they tell each other how much they love each other. And her mother would text something to the effect of, I have it in my notes, I can show it to you guys later, but something to the effect of, love, love, love you more. And so there is no way that very same day, after having this beautiful texting with her mother that she had every day, that she would unalive herself with 20 stab wounds and not leave a farewell note. I would never, ever buy that in a million years.
Well, now we know it's 23 also.
Right. Even more than what Osborne had.
And Dr. Wecht says, strongly suspicious of homicide. Then the next is a letter from Dr. Ross. And he states, in his opinion, to a reasonable degree of medical certainty, that the manner of death is homicide. Report by Dr. Wayne Ross. And then it shows what he it was leaning on. The findings of the neck are evidence of strangulation and are compatible with manual strangulation. That's the part we were talking about. There are fingernail marks on the front of the neck. And then, of course, the strap muscles on the right side of the neck had bruises.
One of the top ways that men unalive their women is via
manual strangulation.
Yes.
Okay, let's keep on heading through here. Dr. Wecht. Findings, opinions from the report. Oh, this is Dr. Lee. Let's see what Henry Lee has to say. It said, he also states here, if Ellen's boot had made a print in the blood, there would be other similar pattern prints on the floor corresponding to her footsteps. Yes. One of the things also, I don't know if they're going to get into this. I'll wait. I'm going to make a mental note. let's see what Dr. Lee has to say. Consistent with primary scene. Yes, we know this. Blood stains. Consistent with her having been upright in the kitchen when received some of her injuries. Aha! There is no indication of cleaning in the area of Ellen's right hand. Blood flowing in different directions on, oh, for heaven's sake, Janet, on Ellen's face could mean that she moved after receiving the bleeding injuries. So one of the other things is in her right hand, she had a pristine, perfectly clean, not a single stain on it, white dishcloth. I don't know how you do all of this to yourself in your prominent hand. It doesn't make sense. And there was blood flowing like crossways on the on her face, from her mouth, I believe, to the ear, or vice versa. And he maybe says it here. The blood stain patterns indicate that she was in a standing position when she received her initial injuries. Subsequently, she was on the floor with her head leaning forward. The number and type of wounds and blood stain patterns observed are consistent with a homicide scene. Oh, yes, Heidi. Yes, she was holding a pristine washcloth. She had a scrunchie around one wrist, and she was holding a dishcloth with the other. Yeah, y'all got to watch the documentary. I'm just saying. Then biomechanical analysis by Michael Woodhouse. This is a Does everybody remember the Crash Daddies, the biomechanical engineers from Karen Reed's trial? Well, that's what this guy was trying to do. How did she stab herself in this way? Stab wounds of the posterior head and neck are not consistent with self-infliction. Self-infliction of multiple posterior head and neck wounds would require multiple dynamic movements of the wrist and elbow, which is not biomechanically probable. Yeah, we know. So we now have a biomechanical engineer saying that this can't happen either. It would have, and the injuries would have impaired her coordination and motor skills. Not consistent with self-infliction. And the final conclusion is that Ms. Greenberg's manner of death is not biomechanically consistent with unaliving. Wow, everybody's on the same page. Dr. Ross consultative report, not consistent with an unaliving, but are consistent with a staged unaliving. There it is. More of the same. This is yet another individual stating this was not, that this was a homicide. I agree, Kelly. I was not mad about having to watch Dr. Wolf testify. Dr. Wolf with an E. He was the prettiest. So I am unashamed about it. When you get to be my age, you can be all happy about any beautiful people in the world, because the backup quarterback for the Washington Commanders, y'all. Okay.
You're cracking me up right now. I have sons that are the age of Dr. Wolf, so I was trying to behave myself, but he was very fun to look at. And even, you got to admit, even Dr. Bev couldn't take her eyes off. Judge Bev couldn't take her eyes off of Dr. Wolf.
Oh, yeah.
Regular, he's closer to my age. I mean, he's still younger than me, but he's a little closer to my age. So
eye candy's eye candy. I don't care what your age is. I mean, my son's 24, so the backup quarterback for the Commanders, I'm like, I'm not looking to do anything weird with you or anything. I just want to look at you.
Answer me this, chickadees and misdemeanor, going off topic for a minute, but why are quarterbacks always so handsome? Is that like a prerequisite that you do not get to try out for quarterback when you're like in the 6th grade unless you're cute? I always found that to be so funny how quarterbacks are always so incredibly good looking.
I do think there's probably a common denominator as far as personality goes, that there's a certain type of leadership that exists. So
yes, and people can come across as being attractive. Besides, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder anyway. So what I might find attractive, you may not. And a personality of a person brings out their attractiveness. And many of these football players and athletes, their parents were athletes. They have that athlete DNA in them.
If y'all liked Dr. Wolf, I'm telling you, you need to look up, what is his name? Sam Waterman. Is that what his last name is? I think that's what his name is. He is the backup quarterback for the Washington Commanders. He played for Notre Dame. He's beautiful. He's absolutely beautiful. Okay, back on task. The final conclusion from this report, the necessary degree of medical certainty to support the selection of unaliving as the manner of Ellen's death is patently lacking. So all these people are in agreement that it was not an unaliving of her own. This looks like more of the same. Yeah, they're giving more findings. I want to find out what this chickie thinks. Hartman, yes, thank you. Not Waterman, it was Hartman. I had some of the letters right.
Yes, you did.
Oh, yeah. A couple years ago, he was playing for Notre Dame, and I said to my husband, I'm like, oh.
He is a very handsome man. There he is. Have your moment, misdemeanor.
Oh, my. Oh. He shaved all of that off. Doesn't matter. He's still great looking.
Should I change my profile picture and put myself up instead of, I'll change my profile picture and then I'll mute and then I'll just be Sam Waterman for the rest of the night.
I said to Mr. Demeanor when I saw him, I said, oh my goodness, there is a young man.
Don't take it personal, Mr. Demeanor.
Has the most amazing facial hair. And I don't normally go for that, but oh my goodness.
Yeah. Oh, that's fun. All right.
Dr. Arden, this looks like I don't remember who the name of the person. It wasn't Arden that did this report, was it? It is. It must be material reportedly reviewed as above in consultative report by Dr. Ross from 7/22/24. Findings and opinions in the report. Wounds to the posterior head and neck could be self-inflicted. I'm going to need to have Dr. Arden and Dr. Ross come give me a demonstration. And I don't want any blue paint. I want a full-on demonstration. People are known to self-inflict painful injuries without the pain incapacitating them from further action. It is well known that people who die by unaliving may not leave notes or outwardly manifest signs concerning for unaliving ideation. Well, yeah, I get that. Analysis of Ellen's computer reportedly found internet searches for methods of committing unaliving, quick death, and depression.
But not unaliving by stabbing. That was not Googled. That
was
not checked by her.
Or unaliving, painless unaliving, or anything like that. Yeah. Autopsy photographs show hemorrhage in the soft tissue and epidural space of the cervical spine. Injuries of the spinal cord occurring shortly before death may have little to almost no hemorrhage. The manner of death is unaliving. And then this is about the circumstances. We've gone over that a bazillion times. Good grief. She just wanted this to be a long report. Wonder if she got paid by the word.
Yeah, right.
Scene of the incident. We know what the scene looked like. I want to know what your conclusions are, honey. Let's get to the chase here. What's this? What are we changing the color of, guys? I'm sorry.
Oh, the paint instead of blue paint. Let's use purple because I'm wearing purple tonight, misdemeanor, because purple is the color for Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And we're right smack dab in the middle of Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So thank you to everybody in the chat that wrote back. If you could all share on your socials in memory of our fellow sisters who have survived or those who did not survive, and just share it on your socials that this is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Domestic violence can be prevented, and most people don't really understand that or are aware of that. But Ellen's death could have been prevented if indeed we believe that she was a victim of domestic violence is true, and we do believe it is. That's our opinion. But it can be prevented. If it's caught in time, it can be prevented. And even men, there are some women who participate in DV. It's a very low number. But men who have gone through counseling after the fact of admitting that they were involved in a domestic violence relationship, the success rates are very high that they will not reoffend. So we all have to do better in our communities, trying to see the signs if we can. It's so difficult, misdemeanor, because if Ellen was suffering, she was suffering in silence, because we know based on this report now that she didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, I don't think she felt safe enough to be able to tell anyone. And also purple and pink. So we've got the purple for DV survivors. And it's also breast cancer awareness month. And if anybody's been following me, you know, I'm a survivor. So
oh my goodness, thank goodness you're a survivor. And my dear mother is as well, and a dear friend of mine. I think we all know someone. I think
of course. It's so prevalent now.
So grateful that you're okay and that you made it through it.
Me too. That was not something I wanted to do. That's what all the tears were shed in that situation, is I just didn't want to do it.
Oh my gosh, no, I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. It's a scary, scary thing for women. So women, get your breast exams. Get those done every year.
Yes. 13th of every month. 13th of every month.
Yes, and postmenopausal women, make sure you get checked as well, because you can become susceptible to cancer when you're postmenopausal. It's a very dangerous time. So there's a little window there after you've gone through the change. So really make sure you're getting to your yearly physicals and taking care of yourself.
Yes, indeed. That's how mine was found.
Good.
I mean, I had a feeling there was something going on. So, but I was due for my annual. I never miss my annual checkups.
We know our bodies, though. No one knows our bodies better than ourselves.
Absolutely.
We're not doctors. We didn't go to school for it, but we're women. And we know when something's off with our health. We can always tell. Actually, a friend of mine, misdemeanor, who lives near me here in Florida, I met her through a case that I was working on with the sister of a missing woman named Sarah Ebersol. And she's been missing for 2.5 years, suspected domestic violence, but they have no evidence. And one of the ladies that's been a key volunteer in this hunt and trying to find Sarah is right around my age. She might be a little older than me, early 60s, and she just found out that she does have cancer. But she knew she had cancer for years, and she kept trying to tell them, something's wrong with me. I think I might have cancer. I don't know, but there's something not right. And they weren't listening to her, and they weren't doing the proper tests, and now she's stage 4.
Oh,
it's horrible. And
there's no better advocate. There is no better advocate for your health than yourself. I have a friend that she was recently diagnosed, and I told her, and y'all know I am not one to curse, but I said to her, be a bitch about your care.
Yes, absolutely.
Don't try to be the nice, kind lady. Be demanding. Ask a ton of questions. Do not apologize at all. When you get into that situation, that's the only thing that helped me. They were going to try to do a bunch of stuff. I had to stay in the hospital overnight. I was not supposed to. And they wanted to run all kinds of tests and everything. And I was like, no, I know what I need. And right now I need to rest. I need to eat a sandwich and rest.
I need a sandwich. That's right. That's right. We all need a sandwich from time to time, especially the last 4 weeks. If you follow the Karen Reed case, I've eaten a lot of sandwiches to try to get through some of my live streams. I've had anxiety attacks on the air trying to cover everything that's been going on with Karen Reed, and no justice yet for poor deceased John O'Keefe. That's a whole nother problem as well.
You're absolutely right, though. Okay, well, this says, I see last activity on Ellen's work laptop per a recent documentary is at 4:46. It's not verified. So we don't know that. I mean,
it says that now this is new to me. I don't have this in any of my files. Someone was on her laptop at 4:46.
It says there is activity on her work laptop at 4:46.
That doesn't make any sense.
I know. That's why I saw it and I was like, okay, no, we need to take a peek at this here.
Yeah.
And of course, then he enters the gym at 4:51. And we all know about all the neighbor and all of this stuff.
I think he went on her laptop before he left to go to the gym.
Absolutely. Had to make sure there was activity because otherwise there would not have been anything from 3:41. That was too much time.
Right. So, and she's going to conveniently decide to unalive herself with no unaliving note left for her family within minutes after he leaves to go to the gym.
Timing is just too suspicious.
They just expect us to believe this line of malarkey where her death is concerned is just it's so aggravating. It's a mix of emotions for me. I get angry about it every day. I get sad about it. She's been on my mind literally since I first learned of this case way back then in 2011. And then when social media became a thing, more powerful, after her death. And then with the YouTube community coming on board with Gavin Fish and Surviving the Survivor, Joel, they've been covering it. And I think of her every day. I think a lot of us who have followed her case, there's a big Facebook group, by the way, guys, if you want to join it, I believe it's her cousin that runs it, Justice for Ellen Greenberg. There's a Twitter account, Justice for Ellen. And there's just so many people who care about what happened to her and who never knew her. But now we feel like we did know her. Like, I feel like I knew Sandra Birchmore. I know that sounds weird, but I've been talking about her and covering her advocacy for over a year now. And we start to feel like we knew these ladies and we want justice for them. It's just a matter of justice for the families now. They're in heaven. They're resting in peace. Thank the Lord. But it's not right that the families are not getting justice for the lives that they led.
I completely agree. Okay, so this is the crux of everything. We've got 5 pages. This is the findings. Due to the large volume of material to be reviewed and discussed, components of the autopsy findings are discussed in separate sections. Dr. Osborne documented 20 separate stab and incised wounds on Ellen's central chest, upper abdomen, posterior scalp, and neck. The undersigned found 3 additional superficial stab wounds on Ellen's chest, right neck, and posterior neck, which were omitted from Dr. Osborne's report. The wounds were in clusters on the posterior scalp, neck, right neck, and central chest, upper abdomen. Other than mental health issues, Ellen was a healthy 27-year-old woman with no physical handicaps at the time of her death. There was no mention in the materials provided of Ellen having a physical disability or limited range of motion in her neck, shoulders, or upper extremities. Based on this collective information, it is the opinion of the undersigned that the locations of the injuries could be self-inflicted or could be inflicted by others. The locations of the injuries themselves do not rule out unaliving or homicide as the manner of death. Okay, so it should be undetermined at that point.
Right.
The stab wound of the left chest resulted in perforations of Ellen's aorta and lung, which is documented in the autopsy photographs. There was a total of 1,220 milliliters of blood in her chest cavities associated with this wound. This indicates Ellen was alive when this stab wound was inflicted. The hemorrhage adjacent to the perforations of the aorta and lungs seen in the autopsy photographs confirms this. Okay, I'm picking up what you're laying down so far. A knife was recovered from the same wound. The copious amount of internal bleeding associated with the stab wound indicates Ellen was alive when the knife was lodged in Ellen's chest. Since the knife in Ellen's chest was the only weapon used to inflict her injuries, this indicates that the stab wound with the lodged knife was the last stab or incised wound inflicted. Based on all these findings, it is most reasonable to conclude that Ellen was alive when all the stab and incised wounds on her body were inflicted. This is corroborated by the fact that autopsy photographs show hemorrhage in each stab and incised wound, either at the skin surface or in the underlying soft tissues. A stab wound on the back right side of Ellen's neck was documented at autopsy. Per the autopsy report, this wound was associated with perforations of the muscles and dura of the cervical spinal cord. After the removal of Ellen's cervical spinal cord, a defect in the cord was found and documented photographically. Forensic pathologists Drs. Wayne Ross and Lindsay Emery examined histologic slides of the spinal cord defect and different points of the investigation in this case. After reviewing the spinal cord tissue histology, they both concluded that the spinal cord showed no signs of a reaction to the defect. Their opinions explaining this finding are different. Dr. Ross' most recent consultative report suggested that the histologic findings support a conclusion that Ellen was dead when this defect was created and that it was created during the course of an attack, making her manner of death homicide. During her deposition, Dr. Emery offered 3 possible explanations for the spinal cord defect. There was a short time between when this injury occurred and when death occurred, such that the body did not have enough time to react to the injury. The spinal cord defect was an injury inflicted by another after Ellen was dead, or the spinal cord defect was an artifact created during the autopsy. This is what I was talking about earlier. A table from Detmeyer's textbook of forensic histopathology provided to the undersigned by Dr. Wayne Ross describes wounds incurred shortly before or after death, as having the same histological appearance. We're not going to have any wounds after death. What are we talking about?
Oh, I think something's coming that's going to really make you lose your mind.
Based on this information, it is the opinion of the undersigned that histology of the spinal cord by itself cannot reasonably explain when or how the spinal cord defect was created. The photographs of the spinal cord after formalin fixation show the defect, which appears to involve the posterior left side of the spinal cord and appears to be superficial. It is the opinion of the undersigned that Ellen was alive when all the stab and incised wounds were inflicted. Therefore, it is most reasonable to reach one of 2 conclusions about this spinal cord defect. Either the spinal cord defect was actually an artifact from the original autopsy, or that Ellen was alive when the spinal cord defect was caused. While the undersigned cannot say with absolute certainty which of these 2 conclusions for the spinal cord defect is the correct one, the preponderance of the evidence suggests the defect was an artifact from the autopsy.
So she's blaming Osborne. She's blaming Osborne for making a cutting error during the autopsy.
Right. There are findings to suggest the defect in the spinal cord was an artifact created during the autopsy. The defect of the spinal cord, as seen in the postmortem photographs, can best be described as cylindrical in shape and having irregular edges. This description does not correspond to an incised injury, nor does the defect resemble the incisions made in the spinal cord during the examination. The description of the spinal cord defect better corresponds to a defect caused by a blunt instrument, like the hilt of the knife. Given the dimensions of the defect, a probe could reasonably have created the defect. A post-mortem photograph showing a probe next to the spinal cord defect corroborates this opinion, as there are multiple autopsy photographs showing probes inserted into different injured organs and structures. It would be reasonable to conclude that a probe used during the autopsy inadvertently created the spinal cord defect. The area of the spinal cord defect normally carries sensory information from the body to the brain. If this defect were a true ante-mortem injury, it would not have incapacitated Ellen, nor would it have prevented her from continuing to move after it was inflicted. Joseph Scott Morgan has a different opinion on that, I hate to tell y'all, but hey, Boston Bia. Combining all the information on this stab wound, it is the opinion of the undersigned that this wound in isolation cannot exclude unaliving or homicide as the manner of Ellen's death. Where the stab and incised wounds on Ellen's body inflicted by another, one would expect to see additional stab or incised wounds on Ellen's arms and or hands due to Ellen trying to fend off her attacker. Not if she was incapacitated from manual strangulation. However, stab and incised wounds were only found in clusters on Ellen's head, neck, and central chest, upper abdomen. No stab or incised wounds were found anywhere else on Ellen's body. While the absence of defensive injuries does not eliminate the possibility of homicide, the lack of defensive injuries must be explained. The four most common explanations for a lack of defensive injuries are: the attack happened so quickly that the victim did not have time to defend themselves. The victim was intoxicated. Well, no, she wasn't. We've already ruled that out. The victim was physically restrained. The victim sustained an injury early in the lethal sequence of events that was severe enough to prevent them from moving during the rest of the attack. Each of the above explanations will be discussed. Well, you can eliminate one. We already know. Good night, Christine, Life by the Sea. We already know that she wasn't intoxicated, so we can skip that one. Okay, as previously discussed in the context of the scene, the blood evidence at the scene was not consistent with that of a rapidly inflicted attack. If your victim is not really moving, yeah, it's easy to not have any defensive wounds. Good night, Heidi. Thanks for joining us. We're scooting in on the tail end of this, guys, I promise. It is the opinion of the undersigned that there was insufficient time between when Ellen was last alive and when emergency personnel responded to thoroughly clean the blood evidence following such a rapid attack that it was undetectable to trained death investigators, first responders, and police. Really, I don't think they're that trained since they screwed this all up from beginning to end. Okay. The injuries on Ellen's body are also inconsistent with that of a rapidly inflicted attack. In a frenzied or rapidly occurring attack, the knife is often incompletely retracted from the victim's skin. This results in stab wounds with adjacent incised wounds as the knife scrapes across the skin. No such injuries were found on Ellen's body. It is the opinion of the undersigned that a rapid or frenzied attack is not a reasonable explanation for the lack of defensive injuries on Ellen's body. This opinion is shared by Dr. Wayne Ross, who consulted on the case. Post-mortem toxicology, we already know there were no controlled substances in her. I'm skipping that. We already know. She wasn't incapacitated by the binding of her wrists. The round contusions on Ellen's forearms are not consistent with binding by a ligature, while the shape of the contusions on Ellen's forearms could hypothetically be caused by fingers. The undersigned only identified 3 contusions on Ellen's right forearm and 3 on her left forearm. This would indicate an incomplete grip on the forearms if the contusions were indeed caused by fingers. Laughable. Based on this collective information, it is the opinion of the undersigned that Ellen was not restrained by her arms at the time of the fatal incident. I would agree with that, but that doesn't mean she wasn't snatched at some point by the forearm. Dr. Wayne Ross also opined that Ellen was incapacitated by strangulation. The 2 extremely small contusions on the anterior right side of Ellen's neck could hypothetically be caused by fingers. However, they are not in anatomic locations that would compress the blood vessels of the neck. There were also no petechia on Ellen's face or conjunctivae, nor were there fractures on Ellen's hyoid or larynx. Based on this information, it is the opinion of the undersigned that the findings at autopsy were not consistent with strangulation. Of course not. Combining the provided information, it is the opinion of the undersigned that physical restraint is not a reasonable explanation for the lack of defensive injuries on Ellen's body. Got it. The last explanation to discuss is the possibility of an incapacitating injury occurring early enough in the lethal sequence of events to prevent Ellen from defending herself from an attacker. The only stab or incised wounds causing significant internal injuries were those of the left chest, posterior right neck, central lower chest, upper abdomen, and posterior neck head. Just those, guys. It is the opinion of the undersigned that the stab wound of the left chest was the last sustained injury and therefore could not explain the lack of defensive injuries. As previously discussed, it is the opinion of the undersigned that the stab wound of the posterior right neck would not have incapacitated Ellen. The stab wounds of the central chest and upper abdomen resulted in injuries to Ellen's liver and mesentery, respectively. As there were hemorrhages documented in both wound tracts, Ellen was clearly alive when they occurred. However, the bleeding caused by these injuries would take time to render Ellen unconscious. Injuries of the liver or mesentery would not incapacitate Ellen such that she could not defend herself for at least a short period of time. The remaining stab wound with notable internal injury was that of the posterior head neck. The knife that created this wound entered Ellen's skull cavity and perforated superficial blood vessels overlying the basal surfaces of her brain. As previously noted, the undersigned also identified a superficial incision in the right middle cerebellar peduncle that was omitted from the autopsy report. The perforation of these structures resulted in focal subarachnoid hemorrhage on the basal surfaces of the brain, which indicates she was alive when this injury occurred. So she was alive for all of the injuries. Got it. Since it is the opinion of the undersigned that the last stab wound sustained was that of the left chest and that Ellen was alive during all the stab and incised wounds, it is most reasonable to conclude that Ellen survived the stab wound. Dr. Ross, who consulted on the case, noted that the weapon causing this injury severed the cranial nerves and brain, which would be inconsistent with locomotion and motor activity. However, he offered no details about what specific structures of the brain or cranial nerves he found to be damaged, nor how he reached the conclusion that Ellen would have been rendered motionless by them. While the injury to the right middle cerebellar peduncle may have decreased Ellen's coordination in the right side of her body, it is the opinion of the undersigned that it would not have incapacitated her to the point that she was defenseless. After reviewing the likely causes for a lack of defensive wounds, it is the opinion of the undersigned that there is no reasonable explanation for the lack of defensive wounds on Ellen's body. How much further away? Oh, we got to be getting close here. A total of 11 of those wounds were extremely small and shallow. A consultant on the case, Dr. Ross, opined that these injuries were inflicted after Ellen was dead as a way to cover up her murder. However, there is hemorrhage visible in the photographs for all these superficial wounds, whether on the skin surface or in the underlying soft tissues. Therefore, it is the opinion of the undersigned that Ellen was alive when these shallow wounds were inflicted. In the context of a stabbing death, multiple superficial stab wounds are most commonly inflicted in a controlled setting. These superficial wounds could be caused by the victim stabbing themselves to test how painful the injuries might be, or could be inflicted by someone else while the victim was somehow incapacitated or restrained. As discussed in the previous section, the undersigned did not find evidence that Ellen was in any way incapacitated or restrained at the time of the fatal incident. Based on this, it is most reasonable to conclude that the shallow stab wounds on Ellen's body are most consistent with hesitation wounds from self-infliction. Dr. Osborne described 11 contusions on Ellen's lower abdomen, right upper arm, right forearm, right thigh, and indicated they were in different stages of healing. By review of the autopsy photographs, the undersigned identified 20 additional contusions on Ellen's forehead, neck, torso, and extremities, which were omitted from the autopsy report. 20 of the 31 total contusions on Ellen's body. The contusions of Ellen's forearms and neck were previously discussed. The contusions of Ellen's forehead, lower chest, and right upper arm appeared in the autopsy photographs to be healing. The remaining 21 contusions on Ellen's body were at hip level or lower, and most of these contusions appeared to be healing. It is the opinion of the undersigned that the contusions on Ellen's body are not consistent with those sustained from intentional infliction by another. What? This distribution is, however, consistent with incidental contact sustained during activities of daily living, including her work as a first grade teacher. Oh my gosh,
That's
my
absurd.
rage right now.
That is utterly absurd. I know
preposterous.
several first grade teachers. I can guarantee you they do not have these kinds of wounds on their bodies.
I don't know anybody that does,
No,
unless they're being beaten up by someone else on a consistent basis.
that's
Or
correct.
they have mental health issues that is causing them to self-harm.
Self-harm. Correct. Self-inflicted, like trying to, like punching themselves, hitting
Yes.
themselves. Correct. Otherwise, there's no way. I can't believe she would say that in this kind of report. That's just stunning.
To summarize the entirety of this report, I can. It's a pile of poo. But
Thank you.
Ellen Greenberg was a young woman suffering from anxiety at the time of her death. The anxiety appeared mostly to be due to her work as a teacher. She was specifically worried that the grades she needed to submit on the day of her death would indicate that she had previously given inflated grades to her students. That's a reason to unalive yourself, right? She expressed this anxiety about her grades to friends, coworkers, and to Sam in the hours leading up to her death. She was under the care of a psychiatrist for this anxiety. While her recent change in medications had helped with the insomnia associated with her anxiety, she did not survive long enough to address the anxiety itself. Thus, she had an increase in energy to act on her anxious thoughts. Ellen was found dead in her apartment with 23 stab and incised wounds. These wounds were limited to her posterior head, neck, right neck, and central front torso. While the distribution of injuries is admittedly unusual, the fact remains that Ellen would be capable of inflicting these injuries herself. Many of these stab and incised wounds would best be categorized as hesitation wounds. No defensive injuries were identified on her body. There was no evidence to indicate Ellen was incapacitated or incapable of defending herself. Sam's DNA was not detected on the knife used to inflict the injuries. Oh, well, that fixes everything. His self-reported timeline of events is corroborated by phone logs, text messages, surveillance footage, keycard swipes, and police interviews. No evidence was provided to indicate Ellen was in an abusive relationship with her fiancé. There was no evidence of a third party being in the apartment on the day of Ellen's death, nor was anyone else's DNA detected on the knife used to inflict the injuries on Ellen's body. No findings of a struggle were found at the scene, and no valuables were reported missing from the apartment. With all of this information considered, it is the opinion of the undersigned that the manner of Ellen Greenberg's death is best classified as unaliving. All opinions stated in this report are expressed with a reasonable degree of medical certainty. The undersigned reserves the right to amend any statements or opinions if presented with additional significant information. Oh, Dr. Simon, I don't think you'll be doing that.
Unbelievable.
Wow.
It's just earth-shattering that she did not consider that Osborne just retracted everything that he did back then. And then she would blame all of those contusions on being a first grade school teacher. That's utterly ludicrous.
Daily living?
Daily living, yeah.
We talked about this earlier before I even got to that part, but right. I don't even have that. I'm going to be 56 next month, so I'm not like a spring chicken. I bruise easily.
You do as you get older, but she was young.
She was young. There's no excuse for that. And I don't have 31 bruises on my body.
Unless Ellen was hiding from everybody that she had taken up competitive figure skating or gymnastics. The parallel, uneven bars. I mean, seriously, that is the only way that anyone could have these amount of bruises on them. I mean, it makes no sense other tthan the sense that it makes, which is repetitive beatings by a domestic abuser.
Kelly, Texas has it. It was the safety scissors. That's what she was hitting herself with, the safety scissors. You're absolutely right. Oh my goodness, as if I couldn't be more outraged just knowing that they didn't change the manner. Reading all of that just makes me angry.
And look at how long it took them. They were court ordered to do this back in February.
Oh, yes. And then the judge said, you're going to do it and you're going to have it done by this date.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I cannot thank you enough for coming on here. And yes, we will likely be talking about this case again. I'm happy to have you back.
Love to. I'd love to have you on my show. I have 100 slides in a slide deck where I've talked about the entire case. So I'd love to get your commentary on some of the things that I pulled out, especially from the surveillance footage. And it would be great to have you and your chickadees come and join my social change warriors.
Absolutely. We can do that in the future. I would be happy to look at all, because I know I've only seen snippets of the surveillance. So I'd like to see the whole thing. Yes.
Yeah, I was nice enough to receive it from an anonymous person who cares deeply for Ellen. So I have quite a bit of it ready to go. So whenever you're available, I know you're a busy chickadee. Whenever you're available, I can absolutely welcome you on my channel. And I'm glad to come back. I've really enjoyed meeting your chickadees in the chat box tonight. They've been so informative and so helpful.
Thank you so much. I am going to bid adieu to you. I'm going to do just some last minute housekeeping on what's coming up. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. And everyone, rest in peace, Ellen, and to Ellen's parents, we've got you. We're going to keep on advocating for your daughter. We know she didn't unalive herself, and we will not give up. We have no quit.
Keep talking. We'll just keep talking.
Good night, everyone. Peace.
Guys, okay. I got a kind of crazy week coming up here. So tomorrow night, I am going to be on Calling All Beings. I will be on there with a panel. We're going to talk about unknown number. Yep. Netflix documentary, Unknown Number. I think it's appropriate for the mess that's been happening in Massachusetts. So tune in with me tomorrow night. I will have company coming in from out of town. So you will not be seeing me until Tuesday next week. So we'll get together for talk about it Tuesday. Bring your tacos that you can eat while we're talking about it. And but tune in tomorrow night. We're going to talk about Unknown Number. Thank you, everyone, for joining. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, do all the YouTubey things, and I will see you shortly. Remember, it doesn't cost a penny to be kind, so find someone to do something nice for if you haven't already today. And as always, you know what I say.